Well, we have John Nolte from Breitbart. We'll ask him how things are going there. Although I know he won't. He's a loyal guy, and I know he won't say anything he's not supposed to. But let's bring him on anyway. John Nolte, one of the best observers of the media out there, only because he despises them, and that makes him accurate. I mean, that basically it. Formerly of the Daily Wire, but stabbed us in the back and returned to Breitbart. It's great to see you. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. I know. Listen, you are one of the few people in the business I consider a true friend. I know you're not going to stab anybody in the back, but I do have to ask you about the smoldering pile of rubble who used to be your boss, Steve Bannon. No, I mean, what is going on at Breitbart? Because Breitbart has been covering this pretty straight. They have not taken the Bannon line necessarily.
Yeah, we have. We've definitely been covering it straight. Alex Marlow, our editor-in-chief, has made it clear that we're going to cover this straight. We're not going to miss anything. Just about an hour ago, a request went up for about 6 pieces about this. So that's definitely what we're doing. It's the biggest story. It's the biggest political story. I mean, it's all castle intrigue. But I'm sad to report. Actually, I'm glad to report. I don't know anything more than anyone else does, which is the way I like it. I don't know anything about the Drudge tweets. I don't know if he knows something I don't know. I don't know if he's trying to manipulate events. Both are possible. I don't know, and I don't know. The other thing I don't know is if Bannon really said these things. I mean, the White House is disputing the book, but they seem to be taking the Bannon stuff at gospel. So I don't know if he said these things. If he said them, speaking out of turn that way is not a good thing, obviously. But if the president popped off and automatically believed the mainstream media, that's not a good thing either. So as with all things Trump, you just have to give these things a few days to sort of work themselves out before you get too emotionally invested in them, because the media lies, and there's usually a lot more context and a lot more truth that comes out over time, and we just have to wait and see what happens.
I gotta say, I am shocked at I'm not shocked, but I'm not sure what the word is. I'm amazed, I guess is the right word, at the shoddy reporting on this. I mean, I read the excerpt yesterday, and I just picked it apart on the air. I could pick it apart for another 20 minutes. It's not very good reporting, and it's stuff that's provably untrue.
And not only that, but these chaos narratives, and Michael Wolff's probably been working on this book a long time. These chaos narratives, they had a little cachet before we really understood everything that Trump was accomplishing, and not just passing the tax thing at the end of the year, but there's a lot of huge accomplishments within this administration. And not judges, good judges, a record number of judges, opening these pipelines, the deregulation, just all kinds of. I mean, it's like a conservative wish list. Things he wished George W. Bush would have done and he didn't do. And I just don't see how he's portraying the White House as toxically chaotic and dysfunctional. And it just doesn't pass the results. The results are very real and concrete. So I don't know.
And all the stuff you mentioned, plus the fact that ISIS, which had 23,000 square miles of territory, is now operating out of a Portasan. I mean, it was an amazing year. And as somebody, I mean, you were onto Trump right away, and I've always said this. I was not. I really disliked him, but he won me over by the end of the year. I was sitting there going, like, if you're not enjoying this, you're not really a conservative. I mean, I remember Reagan. This is a better year than Reagan ever had. I mean, Reagan's year was after he left office and the Soviet Union collapsed. That was his best year. But this has been an amazing year of accomplishments. And the idea that he sits around and repeats himself and all this, we see him on TV. He doesn't do that.
He is the best politician I have ever seen. And I used to say that about Barack Obama. I'm not being biased. Barack Obama is a brilliant politician. He's just terrible at governing.
Yeah.
He hates America. But Trump is a brilliant politician because he's a brilliant communicator. And these things, Barack Obama is sober and no drama Obama. And he was a catastrophe for this country overseas. Right. He was a catastrophe internally. He put his boot on the neck of the economy. And we're supposed to believe that Trump is a blithering moron and that the White House is a clown show and yet he's turned the economy around, and he deserves all the credit for that.
Hmm.
He has passed major legislation, and it's not just the tax bill that passed. They're going to open up the Arctic Wildlife Reserve, ANWR, for drilling. And unless you were alive in 1995, you can't imagine how big of a deal that is, because
Yeah.
that was a huge deal back then. And he overturned the Obamacare mandate, another
Amazing.
huge deal. I mean,
Huge.
this is a man of accomplishment. This is a
Yeah.
consequential president, and I think the timing hurts Wolf a lot, because maybe the chaos narrative would have worked 3 months ago, 2 months ago, but I don't think it's going to work today, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And
And you know what? If he is that chaotic, I hope
it's,
all my presidents are chaotic.
yeah, exactly. It's a governing technique in that case. It's
Right.
absolutely right. And it is really interesting. I mean, you have been brutal, not just on the media, because the media certainly deserves it, but you have been brutal to the never Trumpers. You basically, I mean, I always had some sympathy. Because I was never a never Trumper, but I was so put off by his manner when he started out. Um, that I have sympathy with them, but you basically don't give them any quarter. You feel that they are not being good Americans, basically.
I think that they're flat out saboteurs. I think that's what they are. I think they're Vichy Republicans. They run to the mainstream media. They undermine. Trump is the guy taking flaming arrows in the back for our cause. And they lied to us. They said he wasn't conservative. Well, that's a lie, because he's more conservative than any of the guys they wanted to give us. Mitt Romney didn't even want to get out of the climate accord. So he's more conservative than McCain. He's more conservative than Romney. He's more conservative than George W. He appears to be a hell of a lot more capable and competent than those three, or George H.W. And so they lied about that. They were dead wrong about that, but they don't have the decency to say that. And then they run around to the media, and the guy taking flaming arrows in the back to get our cause into law, and they're undermining him, they're sabotaging him in the mainstream media. And I think it's despicable. I think it's un-American, and they can all burn. They can all die in a fire for all I
But tell us how you really think, how you really feel. So let's. There are two big
Tell me
things
what
I
good
want.
they do. Tell me what good Never Trump does.
Well,
What
I
what
see it a little
positive
different.
thing did they add
Yeah.
to America? Nothing.
No, I think the sad thing is that they have missed one of the. I mean, about halfway through the year, I started to turn. I started to say, "Oh, this is really going pretty well." Even before the tax thing. Tax thing was to me dispositive. That was a
Right.
big legislative accomplishment in the first year. But still, even before that, I started to say, things are actually going pretty well, and they missed it. They missed one of the great gleeful conservative years in American history, and that's a shame. That's too bad. The mainstream media, and obviously at this point, I can barely believe the stuff that's coming out of their mouths. But when I go to New York, when I visit my left wing friends, my left wing relatives, they buy it all. You are such a good observer of these guys. Do you feel that they're losing any traction at all, any credibility at all? I mean, all this stuff about, net neutrality was going to destroy the world. The tax bill is going to destroy the world. Surely at some point, people look out. This happened to me during the Reagan administration, when all I heard was he was going to start a nuclear war. He was an idiot. He was a movie actor. He was stupid. And then one day I looked and I thought, isn't that the Berlin Wall coming down? And I thought, maybe they were wrong and he was right. And that was the beginning of my change over to conservatism. Do you think that that's going to happen to people now, or do you think the mainstream media has still got its hooks in pretty deep?
I think that with the media, they've gone all in on Bob Mueller, and that's what everybody's pinning their hopes on, is that Mueller's going to dig up something. And they've also gone in on Russian collusion, and I think we all know that that's pretty much dead unless something's happening we don't know about. But there just wasn't any Russian collusion. But it's going to come down to what it always comes down to, and that's the economy. Everything's going to come down to the economy, and I think the economy is going to roar. I don't think there's Obama put his boot on the neck of the. Obama could have had this economy, because the worse the recession, the better the recovery, and he put his boot on the neck of the economy, and now Trump removed that boot and he talks it up and he's making all the right moves, and now the economy is going to boom. And if Trump can keep us out of stupid wars, and I think he's going to, I mean, look what he's done with ISIS without putting a single extra boot on the ground. And of course, our military, got to give him credit for that. But if the economy booms and he can keep us out of a stupid war for the first time in almost 20 years since September 11th, and people under the age of 30 don't even remember this.
Right.
We're going to have peace and prosperity in this country. I mean, the
Mm.
80s and 90s in America were a miracle. They were an amazing time to be alive. It's as good as life gets. And I think Trump can bring those times back. And if the economy roars like I think it's going to, I think he's pretty much untouchable. And we're always going to be a 50-50 country, but I think that's going to be enough that he's going to survive and win re-election.
So let's looking back this year, and I mean, this is a question I have to ask in a way. Are there things that you are disappointed in? You know, you really backed this guy to the hilt. Are there ways that Trump disappointed you?
He does, in my opinion, and maybe he's got a grander strategy at work. He does, in my opinion, create drama.
Mm-hmm.
One of the, when you look back at the 80s and 90s, there was drama. There was the Bork hearing, and there was Iran-Contra, and there was impeachment and Hillary Care and all that stuff. But it was ebbs and flows, and then life would go back to normal, and then something would happen. The OJ, the LA riots. So I don't want to pretend it was all sunshine and roses, but with Trump, it's constant drama, and it's not all his fault, and most of it's on defense. But an example, and I don't think it was a sexist tweet because he says this about the guys. But that tweet he said about Christian Gillibrand, the senator, the Democrat senator, it sounded, you could turn that tweet into a sexist tweet. And I just wish he would think about those things, because then it's 3 days of nonsense. And then we all know that he says the same thing about the guys. So by definition, it's not sexist. But those of us who defend him are like, now we got to do this. Now we got to defend him over this. And he should be defended over it. But I would like to see him create less drama, at least the least amount of drama that he can. That would help a lot. And that's going to help a lot when it comes to his reelection, because people, I think they're tired of the drama.
You know, I compare him all the time to Randall Patrick McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that it sometimes takes a kind of an outlaw to break the soft tyranny that just descends on people without their even knowing it. And I think
that's very true.
Unfortunately, I think that all these things go together. Like, I don't think you can take that part of Trump away and get the good parts of Trump. It's just something that seems to be all one big thing. What are you looking forward to? 2018. What makes you giddy?
Well, I'm really hoping, and this just came across the news today, that he's going to be able to open up the states for health insurance, because that would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
Open up the market, get more free market into health insurance, and I think it would also help to undercut Obamacare. And anything that undercuts Obamacare is God's work. And the other thing that's on the horizon is, I think you hear all these rumblings about a big sexual harassment scandal in Congress. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. But I think Trump is just going to keep doing what he's doing. He's going to talk up the economy. He uses the bully pulpit brilliantly. And I hope he goes out in campaigns, because he needs to get his base revved up. And I hope that he I think that he's going to keep doing everything he can to keep the economy. That's the thing. He's not dumb. All this Russia stuff, all this never Trump stuff, his eye was always on the ball of the economy. He knows that's all that matters is the economy. And I think he's going to keep doing that. And he'll surprise us too. I think other conservative things are going to come down that we never expected. And he'll surprise us like he did throughout last year.
It is funny about the economy. One of the things, they're always as they always try to portray every Republican as racist. One of the things I really like about Trump is that Trump just feels like, whether you're black or white, you need a job, and he feels that, like, black people are going to love him because they'll have jobs, and Latinos will love him because they'll have jobs, and he just thinks that that's going to be enough to get past the identity politics thing. I don't know how right he is, but I think it's kind of touching that he feels that way.
And you go back to the 80s and 90s, and we weren't divided like we are now.
Yeah.
And that's because, and I'm talking analytically. I hope don't sound like some old man being nostalgic. But if you go back and you look at the 80s and 90s, we were nowhere near as divided as we are now, racially or among economic or gender lines, because things were good. Life was good in this country. You didn't have to worry about anything. You weren't stressed out. And that's another thing, is that if the economy can get better, people, Black Lives Matter is going to dissipate because they're going to have nothing to complain about. And I think Obama intentionally enjoyed the fact that the economy was bad because he knew it created stresses, that he could use his hands up, don't shoot lies, and his George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin lies to divide us. And that's what he wanted to do. And of course, the media was on his side. And I think you're right. I think Trump understands if he can get the economy going. I mean, the Hispanic unemployment right now is unemployment rate is at a record low. The black unemployment rate, I think, is at a 17-year low. And that's going to do more for those populations, plus getting the illegals out of here, because that'll raise jobs, that'll increase wages, all of that stuff. He gets it. His eye is on the big picture, and the media and even Bob Mueller, they can't override a good economy.
John Nolte, it's always great to talk to you. I hope you'll come back on again soon. It's the only time I get to see you anymore, so it's always good to have you.
No kidding.
All right.
My
Thanks a lot.
anytime, All right, buddy.
Bye. And, if you want to read Nolte, he's at Breitbart.com, and his stuff on the media is so good and so accurate, and he knows exactly what they're talking about all the time. In a lot of ways, you could look at the history of this country for the last few decades, as everything was the Reagan economy, basically, until 9/11. And then 9/11 changed everything. Bush overreacted, went too big in his response. He wanted to transform the Middle East. It was a worthy goal, but he didn't have the wherewithal to pull it off, and he didn't really have the vision to pull it off. And Obama just he does not like America. He wanted to fundamentally transform America from the most powerful, freest country, wealthiest country on earth to what he almost made it. And I think Nolte's right. If Trump can bring us back to the kind of 80s and 90s of it all, we could have another great 25, 30-year-old run. And, I always say people call a 25, 30-year-old run, they say it's a bubble. I think it's also a third of a lifetime. It's like it's more than a third of a lifetime. So you can have a pretty good life with those bubbles.